Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Suzuko Knott, and I'm here with my fellow co-conspirator.
Irvin Malachi, hi.
Hi, everyone. And we're here to tell you a little bit about the DDGC Research Co-ops that were just launched.
In our presentation today, we're going to talk about why co-ops, why cooperatives right now. We'll tell you a little bit about what a co-op is or can be. And then we want to conclude this presentation by telling you how you can create a co-op and invite you to create a co-op if you are interested in it.
So we wanted to give you a little bit of backstory, sort of what the inspiration for co-ops might be. And this has emerged from conversations within this group, right, within the collective, and also within the steering committee conversations, right? And for years, we've heard from folks about how we wish, right, that there's this desire for a new kind of infrastructure for scholarship and community within German studies. And, an infrastructure that is non-hierarchical, an infrastructure that is welcoming to all folks, irrespective of where they are and their certain trajectories, right? And infrastructures that aren't pay-to-play structures, right? Infrastructures that don't replicate the same kinds of gatekeeping that we've maybe experienced with other sort of more traditional formats. And so we're hoping that co-ops, right, can be something that can sort of disrupt that model of scholarship and invite folks who maybe have felt excluded or have felt in some way unable to participate in scholarship, to give them together a place to kind of reimagine what scholarship in German studies could look like.
So the idea for the cooperatives has been this idea of trying to figure out means by which to bring people together. So these are scholar practitioners at all levels of their careers in various ways positioned within the broad field of German studies. Here we really think German studies capaciously, interpreted however you must. If in any way somebody feels their work touches upon, quote, German topics or is in conversation with German cultural history in some variety, they're within the purview of the DDGC co-ops. The co-ops themselves are intended as sort of semi-autonomous units. So this means that the DDGC as an organization, as a collective, as an infrastructure itself, is there to support you, but not necessarily prescribe what sorts of programming you as a co-op will undertake. The decisions for how frequently you meet as a collective, what format your meetings and work take, what the content is of the things that you are pursuing. These are the type of things that each co-op will decide for themselves. Some of the formats that might emerge as sort of intriguing formats for co-ops are reading groups. These could be panel series. You might be interested in organizing symposia regarding or on particular topics, conferences, or you might just want to get a couple of people together in German studies that share some of your experiences, and you just want to hang out with them in a semi-structured way. The co-ops are intended really to hold all sorts of ways of people coming together under the banner of German studies.
So how does one go about creating a co-op, right? It's important to think about how your particular group will relate to the DDGC guiding principles. And, we hope that if you are thinking about putting a co-op together, that you're thinking very intentionally about those guiding principles and sort of threading it into the ways in which you're constituting your group, the ways in which you are interacting with that group. Beyond that, right, sort of thinking about your main interests. What is it that brings this group together? And how would you sort of mutually support each other as you develop those interests together? Thinking about who would be in your cooperative, right? So it doesn't take much, it takes two people, right? So reaching out and finding one person to kind of get the ball rolling and to be thinking about how to sort of build capacity to do this work together, and then to begin reaching out to folks who you think might have an interest in it, right? And then, of course, accessibility is so very important. So the cooperative gatherings, whatever formats you choose to pursue, right? If it's reading groups, if it's panels, if it's conferences, right? These things should be accessible to everyone who is participating. So taking place hopefully online, right? So that everyone is able to access that. There should be no sense of needing to pay in order to participate, right? So we're really trying to disrupt some of the things that happen at conferences, right? Where you feel you have to pay inordinate amounts of money to go to a space in order to come together. This is meant to do the opposite of that, right? To bring everyone together at no cost, and to be accessible to everyone.
A couple of things to think about when you are you're basically trying to shape up something that might come to resemble eventually a co-op, is that it is important to very intentionally think about the makeup of your co-ops. Too white, too male, too straight is a sort of like a shorthand for some of the issues that proliferate within not just the field of German studies, but beyond too, in the sort of broader sphere of academic work. In that there are very particular kinds of people who have traditionally and historically benefited from the existing structures. And the co-ops are supposed to kind of create openings for people to participate who have been historically and structurally excluded from that. So as you're thinking about the makeup and also the topics of your co-ops, try to think intersectionally, think coalitionally. The idea is to be very critical with regard to questions of inclusion and access, and critical here meaning being very attuned to the needs of the people who might eventually come to constitute a collective within your cooperative. The notion that there are particular types of spaces that are necessary if we're thinking about transforming our discipline, whatever that might be, are just really incredibly important with regard as sort of like attendant things to consider as you are thinking about who's going to be in it. You're also thinking about what sorts of things you want to bring about with this group of people. With regard to the positionality that some of you might have at your institutions, which might be well resourced, there might be a way for you to draw on some of those resources and secure them for the cooperative that you are interested in forming. The idea here is if there is institutional funding for workshops, conferencing, and you really decide that actually having an in-person meeting is important, perhaps there's a way for you to subsidize that meeting and still make it accessible by drawing on some of these existing institutional frameworks. These are just a couple of things to think about as you are thinking of sort of pitching a co-op to Suzuko and myself.
So once you've begun thinking about what this might look like and who you might want to involve in a co-op, you'll be thinking about writing or putting together a kind of proposal. We're not asking for lots and lots of things. We have here a kind of a guideline. It is a guideline, a suggested guideline. It's not a mandatory format, right? But a name and a short summary, about 300 words, if you like, that gives a little background to the cooperative and why this cooperative, right, is coming together. Contact information, pretty key, right, for the main conveners for the cooperative. And then any additional information that you think would be important for us in order to understand, right, the scope of your cooperative. Irvin and I will be your resource, right? So we'll do our best to help you through this process and to also make sure that you are gaining access to resources if you need them, right? And helping to do things like maybe apply for funding if that's something that needs to be folded into the proposal, right? We can help talk you through that. But ultimately, we're hoping to keep this process a kind of minimal, easy, right step that's part of the greater sort of like thinking through and imagining what your co-op might be.
So a lot of the information for how to pitch a co-op, what might be some of the existing co-ops that are emerging, and also with contact information for both Suzuko and myself, you'll find on our DDGC Collective website. So it's ddgccollective.org. We encourage you to browse around, look around, and reach out to Suzuko and myself should you have any questions about this process. We'd love to invite every single one of you to join in our efforts, and we're here to be co-conspirators, guides, supporters, conveners of the DDGC cooperatives. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, and we look forward to reading some proposals.